Hello, I'm Sam Bradbury from Sam Bradbury Art. I hope you enjoy this C Escher tessellation tutorial. Time for me to tessellate this apple.
Right, let's get started. So, to start off with, our first exercise is tessellating a shape. So making a shape from a square that will repeat. I know Escher used, he made shapes that were actual things like fish, birds, lizards, all sorts of different things. And from this exercise, I think what you'll begin to gather is that is a very, very difficult thing to do. So to start off with, I'm going to need a square. So I'll measure one length there. If you haven't got any straight card like this, you might be able to find something square to draw around. But otherwise, just start off from a straight edge, preferably one with two, because that's very handy. I'm going with 8 centimeters because that's nice and easy. Right, I'll do. Right, so I've measured from 2 ends so that I can draw a line straight across. That's nice and easy. And then I've measured 8 centimeters here, so I've do 8 centimeters here as well. And connect those two up, I should have a perfect square. So hopefully you can see that all right. It's important that it is a square. If you get one of those lengths wrong, if it's slightly longer or shorter, you'll be able to tell by looking, but it does mean that your tessellation perhaps won't work. So there you go. That's my square, and that would tessellate on its own. That would repeat forever without ever overlapping or leaving a gap. And that is essentially why we start with that shape, because what we're going to do now is cut things into it and stick them on the other side. So whatever you do to this side, say if I cut something out of here, I would stick it on the opposite side. Equally, if I cut anything out of this side, I'd stick it on the opposite side. And then it should, well, it will tessellate. So I'm just going to go for a random shape rather than trying to do something fancy. So I'll just do one edge for now. So I've drawn a little shape there, just a little squiggly one. I'm going to cut it out. And really what this exercise is doing is just getting an appreciation for how difficult it is to actually make a shape that tessellates and is of something as well, you know, that is a fish or a bird or something like that. It's really difficult. So there you go, I've cut that out there, and I'm going to go to the opposite side, and with my tape I'm going to stick it on that opposite side, and then I think I'll do something else on this side, and again stick it to the opposite side. hopefully you're not having the troubles I'm having of finding the end of the tape. Now then, don't rush this, take your time. I've done this a few times now, sort of practicing for this workshop, and as I said before, I've got a real appreciation of Escher and the time it must have taken him to create something, you know, that looks like a fish or looks like a bird and tessellates as well. It must have taken an awful lot of working out. I've cut this tape to a funny angle so I can go up to the near to the edge as I can, so that it isn't, you don't really want things being too floppy. And I'll probably put a little bit of tape at the back as well once I've finished my shape, just for that little extra bit of strength, because while you're drawing round it, it would be awful if it started falling apart. So there you go, and it might not go back together. So I've done that side. What do I want to do now? I might have something coming in here or here. I'm going to choose this bottom bit. Now then, what I did before was I started in a corner so that I knew when I put it on the other side, it was very easy to match up with this side because it took up the whole length. If I cut something out of the middle here, I'd have to make sure that it was the same on the other side. In fact, I'm going to do that just so you can see what I mean. So if I cut a little, it's going to cut a little semicircle type thing out there. Again, I'm working very quick, but as you can see, I want to get it, if I stick it slightly off center, it's not going to tessellate. You want to get that exactly the same as on the other side. So if you do decide to take anything out of the middle length of your shape, then do make sure you measure, because otherwise it's not going to tessellate. Or equally, what you can do actually is draw along that length. You can see, just about to see the pencil marks there, and then I've moved it down. In fact, that's a much easier way of doing it. And then match that back up there. You can see that. So what I've done is made sure that it's fit into that drawing I did of this missing bit. And then of course I've got to stick that down without it moving. This can be very, very fiddly, but it's worth it. So I've just used little bits of tape, and I'm cutting as I go. If you start trying to tear bits off, usually if it gets really messy, make sure you're using scissors. So there you go. I think I quite like that shape. I'm gonna try it out now. So I think I'll even start from where I started drawing around it there, and this should work out all right. Nice sharp pencil. I'm very, very gently pushing it into the template that we've made, because otherwise I might go wobbling off and all sorts of things. So you want to, but you don't want to push too hard that you kind of, you don't want to push too hard that you accidentally miss or accidentally, you know, dig into your template and ruin it, because you're going to need it several times if you're drawing around it for tessellating. So I appreciate you might not be able to see that as clearly there as I can, so I'm gonna do the next one in pen, I think, just to show you. You can work in pen as well if you like, but I do recommend doing everything in pencil, because if you miss or accidentally make a mistake like I did there, pen's permanent. Whereas if you've got a rubber and you've worked in pencil, you playing it safe. Now, again, I am trying to work very quickly just to show you. So there we go, there, I've drawn around it, and of course you can see now, testing it out, that if I bring my shape there, yeah, fits that side. Oh, lovely. This side, and at the bottom I've just done, and that will repeat then forever as I draw around it. And then you might notice something in your shape, it might look particularly like something, and you can work into it later. And I did one of a fish. It took me a very long time to create something that looked fish-like, but when you add in some details, you know, like eyes and scales and things like that, it really does start to come together. I don't quite know what this looks like. It's just a bit of a amorphous blob, but have a little fiddle. You might want to turn your page around, see if it looks like something else that way, or you can just keep it as an unusual shape. So that's our first go at tessellating, just taking something from one side, sticking it onto the next side, on the opposite side of the square. So if you imagine the square is still there, and again making sure that it's exactly opposite. So there you go, give it a go. Try and do something intricate and small and fancy if you like, if you're feeling confident. If not, just have a go just cutting out circles, little triangles into it, all sorts of different things. This is more about giving it a go, this one, and then once you get better at it, and the more you do, the more you get used to how it works and different things you can do. So yeah, give it a go. That was just me giving an example. If you're having any trouble, then get on the chat and let me know, and I'll do what I can to help. Okay, I can even play this video again if you like. So there you go, get started, start drawing a square, and then drawing into it, cutting into it, and making sure that you put them on the opposite side. Good luck! Right then, next we are going to be trying a bit of tessellation out. We're starting with a triangle. So first off, we've got to create a equilateral triangle. There are other triangles that tessellate, but an equilateral triangle is much easier to work with in terms of changing that shape into something else. So to start off with, we're going to make a square. So we've done that before, and in fact here's my piece of card that I used earlier with a square missing, and I've measured that. What I will say is, to make life easier, make sure all the sides of this square are a nice even number, if you can, because you're going to be halving it in a minute. It just makes life a little bit easier. So I remember that was 8 centimeters that way. I need to do 8 centimeters this way. As I said before, if you're finding this tricky, you can find something square to draw around in your house and use that instead, but beware, because many things you think are square aren't. Like a CD case, for example, that's not square. Don't try it. It will tessellate, but you won't be able to get a triangle as easily with it. So here you go. Right, I've drawn my square, and then I'll probably explain this before actually playing the video, because I always over explain everything, but I'll talk you through what I'm doing as we go. So here we go, here's my square, and then I've measured the bottom here, and I'm going to draw on this paper just so you can see. So I know that length is 8 centimeters, or whatever your length is. If you're not working with something that's 8 centimeters, don't listen to what I'm doing here and start doing things 8 centimeters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find half of that, which is 4. There we go. And then I'll mark that on 2 opposite sides of my square. And this bit, it's important you get this right because it's how you're going to get your triangle. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle of my square. So now you should have a nice square with a line going right down the middle. And then how you get your, let me go back to my pencil a second in case I go wrong. So I know this bottom length is 8 centimeters. And then what I want to do is to find my other, this bottom length is going to be part of your triangle. To make it an equilateral triangle, I need to make a length here, which is also 8 centimeters from this corner to this middle line. And then I'll do the same from this corner to this middle line. So, I'll use my ruler. And I'll just keep filling it around until I get it right. Okay, so where that line meets the ruler and that corner, that's 8 centimeters. Okay, looking good. And then I'll do the same on this side. Lovely. So there you go. That should be an equilateral triangle now. And then I just cut that out to get my triangle. There you go. Well, if you're struggling with that first bit, I will play this video again so that just in the background while you're getting on with this in a minute, so you know what's going on. Right, I've wasted the page there by writing 8 centimeters on it, but never mind. So I've got my triangle, and then we're only going to work this time with 2 sides. There are other methods we can do, which but I'll be talking a little bit more about that in our next exercise when we use hexagons. So here's our triangle, and again, whatever I do to this side, there's no opposite side this time, so what I do to this side, I'm going to do to this side. I'm going to leave this base unmarked, uncut into. So let's have a look. What am I doing now? I'm going to do a triangle in here, I think. So I'll show you what I'm doing as I go. It's a lot easier to work from corners because then it's easy to match it up with other sides. So there we go. So I've cut that out there, and I'm just going to place it on the other side. And that shape there will now tessellate, which is great. And what you can do, which I'm going to do in a minute, so you can stick that down, and then you can make it slightly more complicated if you like, but this tends to be where things can go wrong. I did an example and I had to throw it away because I started cutting things off of a length and then sticking them to the wrong length on the other side, and it can go wrong, and you just have to take your time. Don't overthink it, don't rush. So I know this side here, these two lines, when they tessellate, are going to tessellate with these two. So I can imagine this matching up with that, mainly because I just cut it out from there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out something else here as well and stick it on the other side. Don't worry if this is slightly confusing. You don't have to go wild and do lots of elaborate cuttings and things. Sometimes some of the most simple shapes are the best and make for some really interesting tessellations. So here you go, I've cut that out there, and I know this side was tessellating with that side, so I'm gonna just stick it on the other side there. Nice, I quite like that shape. I'm going to leave that as it is, and I'll see if I've done everything right. You'll soon know if you've gone wrong when you start drawing around it and testing out your tessellation. Another thing to watch out for is once you cut out something, so say I've just cut that shape out there and stuck it over there, make sure you haven't accidentally turned it over, because it's not going to work if you do that. Right, I'm pretty happy with that shape. I can imagine it looking like some sort of strange bird, maybe. I don't know. I might work into that, or maybe some sort of dragon's head with a tiny wing. I don't know. So, right. Fingers crossed. Has it worked? Let's give it a quick draw around. Or two. I am going to do actually. I mentioned it earlier. Is that I've put tape on this side. I'm just going to add a little bit of tape on this other side because I can already feel that that's not particularly sturdy. And sometimes if you're cutting out small shapes, you'll be working with tiny little bits of tape as well. It's not always great to use lots of tape. Almost the smaller the bits of tape you use and nearer to the edges you get, the sturdier it's going to be. It's not about the amount of tape, it's kind of where you put it. So I've got like a little triangle here. Held that, yeah, it's the one I could feel was a bit dodgy. Okay, let's test it out and see if it's worked. You might have started already. That's absolutely fine. Like I said, I'm working very, very quickly. I've done a few of these now. Oh, close. There you go. I'll give you the advice of not pushing too hard, then I do it myself. It's important when you're drawing round as well. I'm trying not to get my fingers in the way of the video too much, but ideally, as you're drawing round your shape, feel your way around as you go. So if I'm drawing along this length, I'll be putting my fingers right along that length so it's nicely held down. I'll be pushing down close to wherever I'm drawing because it does help to keep it sturdy. Right then, so that's there. Then, oh yeah, that matches there, brilliant. And then when you've finished, you've drawn around this a few times. You might notice you're starting to get the sides of a hexagon in your picture, which is great. And it can work because then you're almost making patterns inside a hexagon, which is then tessellating as well. And it's also how we're going to be creating our hexagon for the next exercise. We're going to be making it from a triangle, so there we go. Okay, that's working out really nicely. I like that. what you might find as you do these is what I did as well, was sometimes it doesn't quite match up, like there. If I put that there, there's a big gap here. Don't worry too much. I'm just going to join it up along the length there. So now I could put that there and carry on. But I'm going to stop there just to show you what I mean. That there's like a little hexagon there. And there is another method of changing your shape that doesn't involve putting things from one side to the other, and I'll be talking about that in our next exercise. But give that a go and enjoy yourself. I hope you're starting to get the hang of it. If you are struggling, don't worry. As I said, I'm going to play this video again from the start just while you're working. If you're getting bored of my voice, you can mute me for a minute while you work, and I look forward to seeing what you all make. Good luck. Okay, so in this next exercise we'll be tessellating with a hexagon, but I thought I'd just quickly run through how we're going to make that shape. To some of you it might be obvious, some of the mathematicians out there who've taken part, but it wasn't obvious to me. So we've already done something using a square to start with, and then we learnt how to turn that square into a triangle. So there's the square I used earlier, and I then made a triangle from that. And then what I did was I drew around that triangle, or a triangle I should say, 6 times to make my hexagon. So as you can see there, these 6 triangles are what made up this hexagon. So as I said, some of you that might be obvious, to others maybe not so, but pardon me, I'm just flicking my pages through. What we're going to do now is make that hexagon, and I'll show you another way of changing your shape that's different to just putting something from one side to the other. You can still do that with a hexagon, but this one's slightly different, and it's something that I really enjoyed finding out. It was good fun, so we'll give it a go. Now then, for this you will need, I might not work with these small ones, I'm going to make a new hexagon. I'll go through it with you. So again, I'm going to need a square. Right then. If I was clever enough, I could have drawn around that square I made at the start, but I didn't. So I've got to make another one. Here we go. Right. Oh, that doesn't look right. You know what they say? Measure twice, cut once. Some very good advice. There we go. Right, so I've got my square, and I'm just going to go through the same processes again that we did earlier. So I'll get rid of that for a second. Got my square. I'm going to find the middle. So if that's 8 across, the middle is 4. So half of that length is 4. Also find half of this top length. So make sure they're opposite lengths. It doesn't matter if you do it this way or that way. So as long as they're opposite, not So there we go. So now that's 8 at the base, and I need to go 8 from one corner to that middle line. Try and be as accurate as you can with this bit, because, pardon me, even if you're slightly out, it can be noticeable when you start to work. I managed to drop my scissors. So there you go, I've drawn my triangle out. It's a nice easy way of getting an equilateral triangle actually. There are other ways. You can use a compass to get it and all sorts of different things, but this is really kind of a nice simple way that doesn't require lots of equipment and things. Right, so I've got my triangle. What I now need to do, and that's not going to fit on there, is get a bigger piece of card so that I can draw around this onto it. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I was going to work onto purple card again, but I realised that it might not be very clear. You might not be able to see what I'm doing so much, so I'm working on white card this time. So I've got some more card. I've got my triangle, and then it's just a case of, well, if I work from the base of this card, that's going to be good. That's one length done then. I'm going to draw around it 6 times to make a regular hexagon. So you go, I've done it once, and I go around these again. I do apologise, my hands keep getting in the way. I don't have a big fancy camera or anything, so it can be tricky getting you to see. Nice, there you go, we've got 1, 2, 3, I need 3 more on top now, so this triangle isn't the best, but it'll do. I'm sure you'll take your time and do it a lot better than I do. I think that should fit in there roughly, yeah. And there we have it, one hexagon. So on this outside edge of this shape that I've just drawn using the triangle, I'm going to cut that out. Yeah, and please do as I say, not as I do, and take your time with that. Right, I'm just going to move that so it's a little clearer what we're doing. So there we go. I've got the hexagon there. I can already see that it's not perfect, but I can only apologise for that. So now then, this bit is where we go a little bit different, because what I could do is I could cut out a shape from this side and stick it onto this side, or vice versa. As long as they're opposite edges, you can do that. That's just what we've been doing with the square at the start. However, there is another way, another little method, where if I measure the bottom here, and this is why I chose a nice even number, so half of 8 is 4. I've done a little mark. And again, I'll do this on all the edges. Ooh, some of these are way out. I've obviously not done as well as you guys will. And I'm going around every edge and just marking the centre, just doing like a little notch. so that when I join them up it's going to be nice and accurate. So I've got my lines which are going point to point, and what I've done now is taken the middle of each edge and done a point in the middle. I'm now going to join them up, so that side and that side. Do make sure they're the opposite sides that you're joining up, not any others. And this is something new to me. This is something I didn't realise you could do. I always did with tessellating, cut something out, add it to the other side, cut something out, add it to the other side to make a new shape. And this method is new to me, and I think it's great. I really enjoy it. So what you want to do is on the same side. So I'm going to work from the top here. So I'm going to look at this edge here. And I'm going to work from this middle, and I'll just draw a little horn coming out of that. So there we go. I'm gonna cut that out now. And what I haven't done is I haven't gone over this middle line. So I'm working just from, I have on the inside, that's fine, but I'm not going to cut past that line. Make sure it's all in. I'm going to make sure my shape that I cut out starts and finishes in this one half of this edge. And I'll cut that out quickly. Now this is slightly more complicated than going from one side to the other, but so if this starts to sound a bit too much for you, that's absolutely fine. Just if it is, then you can always just do again the opposite, cut out from one side, add it to the other. However, if you want to try something a little bit more challenging, then what you can do is cut that out and then add it to the other half of the same side. So all I've done is taken that and just added it there. So I'm going to do that, and you can do that with your other edges too. So I'm going to do just a couple more, just to show you, because I don't want you to watch me doing it. I want you to do it. So again, I've got my tape. Right, you want to make sure there's no gaps in these bits you stick down. And again, I'm going to do it. I'll do it with this side now. So again, I've got this edge here, found the very middle, and I'm only going to work. I'm going tentacly in this, but you can do whatever you want. You can do triangles. In fact, I will do a triangle just to show what you can do. You can do any shapes you like. You can go really complicated, or you can just keep it nice and easy if you like. So there you go. Right, here's my bit I've cut out, and it's just a case of taking it out, giving it a turn, and making sure those edges touch. So it's almost like just pivoting until it reaches that other edge. I hope I'm making sense. In my head and how I explain it, I am. It's not always obvious, and it is trickier doing this workshop as an online workshop. But hey, I'm not making excuses for myself. I'm just gonna show you how to do it again, just to make sure that's a good idea. I'm gonna go this edge this time. So again, you can see how this is starting to look nothing like, or a lot less like a hexagon. And of course, what you can do is you can mix up the two methods. So you can work with this method of taking something from one edge, adding it to the same edge, and you can add the other method in as well. I could take something from this side here, from my original hexagon, and I could bring it round and add it to the other side. That's absolutely fine. and it will. I was going to say it should work. It will work if you've done it right. Which the only way of telling is by testing it out. So I'm going to see what I'm going to do. I'm going to do another little wave there. Why not? And that was kind of the kind of revelation for me. Ooh, hang on. I've nearly fallen into my own trap. Right. I'm only going to take from that one half of that side. Ooh, and you went horribly wrong then. The revelation for me was that the number of different methods there are for tessellating and learning how to tessellate. I knew about taking things from one side, putting them to the other. I didn't know you could cut from one edge and stick it to the same edge just on the other half. That was something totally new to me before I started putting this workshop together. So I'm hoping the things that I've learned while doing this, I can produce more interesting, more intricate looking shapes. Okay, I'm going to test this one out now. I know that I could do more on these other edges, but I don't want to take forever. Okay, I'm working white on white, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break my own rules a little bit and work in pen so you can see what I'm doing. Again, pressing down as I go around so that I don't do that. So I don't come into my shape. I'd say there's a lot of skill involved with this, and one of the main things of this workshop is really getting an appreciation of just how difficult it was to do the things that he did. Escher worked like tirelessly to make these things work and learn how to do them properly. So as you can see, I'm just now going to take it and move it around, find the gaps where it fits, and then draw around it again. I've gone very big with this one. You might want to work smaller. Or, you know, sometimes it's quite interesting just to make a nice shape and then go round it and have things coming off your page, and it still looks great. So there you go, I've got one side sorted there. Now then, how does this one work? It should go there. Let's give that a go. And then the more of this you do, the better at it you'll get, and then you'll be able to think about trying to make things, you know, make a tessellated shape that's more figurative, so it's like actually of something. That's the kind of real challenge, is if you really want to do an Escher, then you've got to really take your time, think about where you're cutting out, where it's going to go. He must have spent so long working out how his tessellations were going to work. It really is amazing. There we go. So there you go. So this method of taking from the same edge gives you some very different shapes and things that you wouldn't, you know, doing taking things from opposite edges, you wouldn't be able to get this shape by doing that. Not very easily anyway. It would be an awful slog. I really enjoy that. I quite like that shape, and I hope you give that a go. What I will mention now is, of course, the method of taking from one side. Before, when we did our triangle, we kept the base clear, and we just worked, take it from one edge, putting it on the other. But what you can do is, with your triangle, I'm just going to measure here quickly. 4. Oh, I can actually draw that one in now. And then going from opposite point to opposite face, you can do exactly the same thing with a triangle, or even a square as well. It's a different method rather than going from one side and sticking to the opposite side. So I'm not going to make you do it now, but it's something I'd like for you to try out. If you've enjoyed this, learning how to tessellate, then give it a go. Go back to those other shapes and then have a go at this other method. So instead of cutting out here, adding over here, remember, just take, when you start and stop, make sure it's in 1/2. So I'm gonna kind of cut a little semicircle out this side. Where was it? There it is. And then just twist it round and add it to that side, and that shape will now tessellate. So give it a go. Try out these different methods, different techniques of tessellating, and of course don't forget you can mix it up. So I've just done that side, taken from 1/2, given it to the other, and then if I imagine that that's my base, I can also cut out this side and add it to the opposite side. Same with the square, same with the hexagon. Right, I hope I've explained myself well enough. Again, any problems, put them in the chat, and what I'll do is I'll play this video again, and you should be able to hopefully follow it and have a go yourself. If you are struggling, then there's no problem with just working with doing those opposite sides. That's absolutely fine. I just want you to enjoy yourself, really. So you can cut out from this side, add it to the other, if you don't want to have a go at this other method of changing your shape. Right, I look forward to seeing how you all do, and I'll now go through the chat, answer any questions you've got, and try my best to explain how it's done if it's a little tricky. Right, thank you.